Hello again, Dan Alasso with History for Today. So in addition to personal note-taking, which I'm clearly interested in, I've also become very excited in public note-taking, also known as social annotation. So this morning I want to talk about the application hypothesis in a little bit more detail. Although I've been using it for a couple of years now. I think I first joined in December 2018, and it kind of seems like old news to me. I have to remind myself that a lot of the people who I'm working with at my university are just discovering it, and certainly a lot of my students are just discovering it. So someday soon I'll probably do a short how-to demo, but today I want to mention a couple of things that make the app really useful to me, both in my own research and also in my teaching. And since I'm going to talk about both aspects, this video may run a bit longer than the last few that I've been doing. First, hypothesis is super useful to me in my own research and in my reading process because it allows me to very quickly and easily make highlights and annotations and tags on any HTML or any PDF document that I'm reading. The HTML annotation is the sort of native mode of the app, and the PDF is a little bit more involved, and I'll talk about that in another video. But when you've installed the extension to Chrome, you actually get an annotation count on any document that you look at online. Now, not all of those annotations will necessarily be visible to you. In the case of my ebook, for example, some of them are within private groups, and I'll talk about that in a moment. I personally really like looking at heavily annotated public documents for my own research. Social annotation has become sort of a movement these days with a core group, most of them associated with hypothesis, who are really interested in its potential to democratize and really fundamentally change the way that people interact with information. I'd love it even more if more people were using hypothesis or other apps, especially if they can be made to talk to each other, to publicly annotate web-based documents, because then I would be able to learn even more. One of the really cool things that you can do if people have embraced the philosophy of working in public is you can sort of look over their shoulders. And the way you can do that is that everybody has a homepage on Hypothesis, which keeps track of all of our annotations. And I can go to my homepage and I can use this to recall what I've been doing recently or to return to what I've done long ago. I haven't used tags particularly effectively yet, but once I get the hang of them, they're going to be hugely beneficial to me. And since everybody who annotates publicly has such a page, when I find that someone else has been to a page that I'm reading and has annotated it, and when I notice that something that they've said makes me think that they're smart or worth seeing more from, I can follow them back to their home. I can click on their name and visit their homepage. And this allows me to see what this interesting person that I've just discovered has been up to. And I can follow their tags to see what they've read about topics that interest me, that maybe I'm not even aware of yet, and what they thought. I can see their comments, and then I can follow them back to the article that they commented on. And if others have made interesting comments there as well, then I can follow that trail as well. It's a very fascinating way of learning what the currently few people who use this tool are thinking, and it will get exponentially cooler as more people use it. This will be a true network effect. Oftentimes, I'll respond to a person's annotations, which, if they have notifications turned on, they will find out about. And I do this just to say hi and to kind of let them know that I've been lurking in their reading list. Oftentimes I get a response because people who are working in public oftentimes like to know that other people are interested in the same types of things. However, I should say that I don't force my students to embrace this open approach all at once as a condition of using the tool. Hypothesis is very useful in small groups as well. And as I've mentioned before, I create private groups in Hypothesis for the courses where I use the app. And this has two benefits. First, it allows the students to use their real names when they're annotating. And I think that this facilitates course discussion, since the students seem more likely to respond to a comment when they know who actually made it. It also prevents the students from having to worry that something dumb that they might say or an unpopular opinion that they might put out there will haunt them in later life, since the internet can preserve such items forever and can be very unforgiving. Secondly, it also allows me to grade the students more easily than if I have to keep a decoder document on hand to match code names and aliases with the names of the actual students. That process is easy enough when there are just a few students in a group, but it gets exponentially harder, for me at least, as class sizes grow. Private groups are also my solution to the potential saturation problem that many people have asked me about. I do think that there's a potential disincentive to students who have asked to annotate a document if, when they open it, they find hundreds of comments already there. I already face a situation sometimes when I post questions for discussion that people have to answer in a visible way, where some students will say that their peers have already made the point that they're going to make. I think it's easier for me to address this objection when every line of a document isn't already yellow with highlights and annotations. But another thing that I do with online textbooks sometimes is to look at the patterns left by others who have done their class annotations in a public space. As I've been writing my own U.S. history OER, I've been referring to a couple of existing open textbooks, not only to see how the authors have presented information and dealt with different interpretations, but also how the students have responded. In this chapter of the very popular American Yawp, for example, I can easily get a sense of which parts of the chapter interested students and which parts they skipped over and didn't say anything about. And I can ask myself, was this because that information was unnecessary and superfluous to the point of the chapter? Was it presented in a boring or in a confusing way? And this is great information to me as I try to write lectures and chapters that will interest the students and hold their attention, which I think is the first step to engaging them and to making the content stick. I can also see in many cases how other instructors have used the text. For instance, here's an example of a teacher several years ago who layered the text with his own lecture videos, which he then asked questions about and had his students respond to them in the annotation. When I follow him back to his public page, I can see that he did a whole course in this way. And if I'm interested, I could follow other links from there to his notes and his videos in the other chapters and see how the students responded to those. This public feature of the hypothesis ecosystem creates a lot of very exciting possibilities, I think, for learners and for teachers. And I think for anybody who's interested in not just information itself, but in how people react to and respond to information. And just now, as I've been looking for some quick information on the state of the current discussion on public annotation, I ran into this ebook published by the Stanford University Press by Remy Callier, who's a professor who works a lot with hypothesis, and Antero Garcia, who I haven't run into before. When I click the hypothesis extension button in my browser, boom, there are a bunch of new names annotating this, who I can then follow and explore. Although, of course, there's Chris Aldrich again, who I've already been following. It's a small world for annotation enthusiasts right now, but hopefully it's getting bigger. So I'll have more to say about the actual nuts and bolts of hypothesis and how I use it. But I thought I should first say why I find it so exciting. So I hope people found that a little bit interesting. Thanks for listening. I'll see you again